Yumi got married. Never marry in May or June is a farmer's rule. In fact, it is not a taboo because it's too busy. Wang Lianfang's eldest daughter Yumi is precisely married on May 28th. May 28th, just 6 days past the Xiaoman, 7 days before the Mangzhong. This time, the most important thing for the farmers is double fights. First is the harvest, cutting wheat, threshing, blowing, and getting into the warehouse. Next, they have to plant, plowing, irrigating, flatting, and planting rice seedlings. Busy. A person only has 2 hands, but Yumi does not choose early or late. At this time, to get her 2 hands out is obviously unaware of the environment. The village people are usually good to Yumi. People often say Yumi is an aware girl, but which farmer gets married in May? No wonder the second aunt at the entrance of the alley is talking about Yumi behind her back. She said, "This girl is eager and can't close her legs." In fact, Yumi was wronged. When Yumi gets married depends entirely on when Guo Jiaxing wants to marry. When Guo Jiaxing wants to marry, it depends on when Guo Jiaxing's original wife dies. Guo Jiaxing's wife passed away at the end of March. To May 28th has been over 7 by 7, 49 days. Guo Jiaxing passed the words that he wanted to marry her. Guo Jiaxing did not visit one village, but sent a clerk of the commune. The clerk drove the small speedboat all the way to the stone pier in one village. When the boat crossed the bridge, the firecrackers were set off. The sound of firecrackers in the air in May seemed strange, sounded quite out of tune. It was festival nonetheless. People saw 2 big red paper cutouts of double happiness on the windshield of the speedboat. The driver honked his horn, and the speedboat was already moored at a stone jetty. The small speedboat in the river pushed the horrific waves, which were in a Y shape, symmetrically crashing and surging towards both banks. They were like a pack of dogs, dog fighting, and launched towards the calves of the women on the pier. The women screamed and retreated up the bank with their barrels. The boat stopped, the waves stopped, and the clerk got out of the cockpit. The wedding had been extremely hasty and close to shabby. However, because the stone wharf was leaned by the small speedboat of the commune, this, in turn, did not appear to be hasty or shabby. There was a different kind of atmosphere, but also implied a subtle dominance. Yumi's wedding sedan is, after all, the small speedboat from the commune. Yumi's face did not have the bride's unique panic, shyness, or the kind of undetermined look, but calm, awe-inspiring. Of course, was no one else's. Arrogant and show-off was the kind of dependency look. Yumi's new sporting haircut, very short, could be described as valiant, while her blouse was of red fabric, ironed, thin, colorful, and stiff. In short, in the process of leaving the house towards the small speedboat, Yumi gave a special impression that she loved the makeup of both red and arms. Yumi walked beside the clerk, looking at no one. However, by the look on Yumi's face, she was aware that all were looking at her. The clerk was a decent man, but was nodding and bending, so obviously he was not a groom. Everyone in the village could see that the man Yumi was going to marry was no ordinary man. Yumi walked up to the small speedboat, did not go to the cabin, but sat on the small speedboat aft of the open-air bench. The banks of Jiahe were full of people. Yumi was so natural that looked less like a person from one village. At this time, Yumi's father Wang Lianfang came over, and the chattering crowd instantly quieted down. Wang Lianfang had been the village secretary for 20 years, but just a few months ago was expelled from the post and party membership. He got into the wrong bed. Speaking of on the wrong bed, Wang Lianfang in 20 years did sleep a lot of women, as in Wang Lianfang's own words, across the old, middle, and young 3 generations. However, this time a few months ago, but seriously, 1,000 shouldn't, 10,000 shouldn't. Wang Lianfang sang after drunkenness should not destroy the military marriage. Wang Lianfang came to the stone wharf and made a few rounds of the small speedboat. The faction was still there, the majesty was still there. Every move was still the appearance of a branch secretary, and the expression on his face was still in the party. He raised his arm, dusted his hand outward, and said, "You may go." The motor started. The sound of the motor starting was like a bone thrown, and a pack of dogs started raging again, pushing and shoving and chasing. The little speedboat drove out a few dozen feet in the opposite direction, made a big turn, and immediately turned back again. The small speedboat once again sailed past the stone pier when the speed came up. The speed turned into the wind, and the wind pushed Yumi's short hair up and pulled Yumi's fabric top up. Yumi was against the wind, like a propaganda painting of righteous heroine, both charming and moving, but also to die like going home. With the driver's other burst of horn, the small speedboat went far away. Only Yumi's red blouse fluttering in the speed, like a flag in the wind. Yumi's grandfather and grandmother, and Yumi's younger sisters Yu Sui, Yu Ying, Yu Ye, Yu Miao, and Yu Yang all stood in the procession of sending of the bride. Even her little brother, who was less than a half-year-old, was carried over by Yu Sui. The one who didn't come was her mother. Her mother, Shi Guifang, just sent Yumi out of the patio door and turned back to the west wing. The room was empty and strangely quiet. Shi Guifang was sitting on the lid of the toilet, and she thought of Yumi's childhood, the way she sucked her breasts and the way she sucked her fingers. At that time, when Yumi sucked her fingers, she would draw and look around like a thief. Yumi's saliva was sparkling and full of elasticity. It grew longer when she pulled it, and got longer when she pulled it again. As long as Shi Guifang clapped behind her, Yumi's head would immediately turn around. Because her head was too big, her neck was too thin, and the force was too strong, Yumi's huge head had to shake a few times before it stabilized. Yumi laughed with her gums, and 2 lotus-like arms were also placed on Shi Guifang's side. All this seemed to be just yesterday. In a blink, Yumi was married and became a wife and a mother. She had already become another one's person. Shi Guifang felt a surge of boundless sadness in her chest.